Hello and welcome to another episode of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, along with my producer, Lindsay, and we are in Idaho Falls, Idaho today. Beautiful sunny day, starting out a little bit cold. Speaking of cold, that's what we're talking about today. I was on a bike ride yesterday here, and it was cold, but you know what? I dressed for it, and I actually ended up getting hot. And I started thinking, I'm like, we need to talk about cold weather training on our podcast because just because it gets cold doesn't mean we should stop exercising. So there's lots of different options out there. And I started thinking, I know a little bit about biking in cold weather, but I don't know anything about running and some other exercises. So I thought I would have an expert on my show. So we have Coach Lisa on today, and I'm going to actually let Coach Lisa introduce herself. And she's a running coach, and that's why I have her on. And Lisa, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Lisa Blauvelt. I am a running coach for Grateful Heart Adventures, and I'm over a little bit of the other side of the mountain from Shawn near Issaquah, Washington. So I'm coaching people for running, and like Shawn said, winter's still a great time to get out. You just have to be prepared, and there's some indoor options as well. So we'll talk about that today.
Perfect. So let's talk about, because it's what I know and pretty much all I know when it comes to the topics we're going to be talking about is I know biking. That's pretty much it. I do know some strength training. We're going to talk about that and some yoga, but I'm sure Lisa knows a lot more about that than I do. And she probably knows a lot more about biking than I do too. Honestly, she's been doing a lot longer than I have. So I'm just kind of not well-rounded like she is. So I'm kind of a newbie. So let's talk about one of the reasons I brought it up too, because I've had some questions and answered some questions about what people should do when it starts getting cold. And I've known some people that are, fairly new to biking, and they say, well, it's too bad I got to stop biking. I'm like, no, you don't have to stop biking.
Right.
So, some of the options are Peloton, and always this time of year, commercials start popping up all over social media and TV about Peloton. And, I think Peloton offers a good product. I think you and I talked about it yesterday. I think it is pretty spendy. I know they have a monthly payment option that also will include their workout training programs. But I think it's around $2,000, maybe more. One of the disadvantages of Peloton is that if you are a competitive rider, like Coach Lisa and I are, they're not your regular. They don't fit like your regular bike, and that's a big issue. Like, if Lisa does a triathlon, she's going to be on her bike for 5 hours. If she does an Ironman, 5+ hours probably. And if your bike doesn't fit you right, doesn't matter how fit you are, right, Lisa?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you need to be comfortable on your bike and know how to handle it and ride it for a long period of time. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I would recommend Peloton if someone is just a casual, they want to get fit and they just want to be, casual biker. But if you're going to be really competitive, I think you need to be on your bike. And so some options like that are a Wahoo kicker. Will you want to explain about a Wahoo kicker since you have one, Lisa?
Yeah, I have a Wahoo kicker. So this is especially Wahoo kickers operate on the bike power that you use. So it includes the power, and you can do programs like Trainer Road and other things on the Wahoo kicker. And what you do is you just put your own bike on the Wahoo kicker and you take off the rear wheel. So you're getting all that seat time on your own bike, which is really important, getting comfortable if you're doing triathlon and aero or, sitting up, whatever, but it's your very own bike. So the kicker just controls the power based. They have an app that you can use that's free that does power, or you can get things like Trainer Road where there's actual specific bike rides you can pick and do. So it's a great way, very efficient too. You can do it in the dark. You can, in your house, in the garage, whatever. And in an hour, you get a lot more efficient riding and then even just riding outside, really, because you're not stopping, all the different things that can go on. So so the Wahoo kicker is a great option.
Absolutely. Indoor train is a great option. It's not, I will say there's some disadvantages to it. Disadvantage to it is it's just not maybe as Well, it's not as scenic for sure. So maybe not as fun as going outdoors, because you just are in a static position most of the time, or all the time. I guess you can stand up and stuff, um, but you're right. As far as workouts go, as far as a good workout,
Mm-hmm.
indoor training, you get a better workout than you do probably outdoors most of the time, because you are constantly
Right.
you're constantly on. There's really no downhill coasting, so to speak. So
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
really, they try to simulate coasting, but it doesn't
You're
simulate
still
coasting like
pedaling.
outside. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
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 And the programs that have come out, power-based programs like Trainer Road, we're
Mhm.
trying to get a website up to see if we can stream that for our listeners and viewers. And Zwift, there's Zwift. I don't know if you're familiar with Zwift at all.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and Zwift is another one that instead of um, um, it's power based also, but it's more competitive as far as you can do group rides all over the world with people. Now, Trainer Road did just add that option, so you can do group rides in
Yeah.
Trainer Road also, and it makes it a little more challenging and fun. So yeah, check out Trainer Road, you guys, or Zwift. Both of them are good options, and you don't have to have a Wahoo kicker. Wahoo kickers
Yep.
are, Lisa, do you know the price of a Wahoo kicker?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think they're around 1,200 for a
Okay.
Wahoo picker, but
Okay.
again, the advantage is you're on your own bike. So that's a really good thing. I would just say real quick about Zwift. Zwift is a kind of a little bit more social, they would say, because you do have other riders. But with Group Ride with Trainer Road, I'm actually seeing my own friends and setting up my group ride with them, and it's just like this. I'm watching them on video on their bike while we're doing the same ride, but we're all at our own power levels or whatever it is. So
I have never done that, and I really should. I should get involved with a group ride with you guys sometime on Trainer Road this winter.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really nice. It's really nice because it's just it's great to see your friends instead of a cartoon, to me anyway. Like in
Yeah.
Zwift, like I
Yeah,
want
for
to see
sure.
my friends and talk with them, and we can have a conversation when we're not working too hard, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So as you can see, Kicker has a lot of different things. The Kicker bike, I'm not very familiar with. That is definitely not your regular bike on the trainer. But the Kicker Smart Trainer, yeah, you can see it's about $1,200. That second one right there, and it's really simple. And I can also take it. Like when the winter in the past, we've gone to people's garages and had 2 or 3 of us ride together and just take my kicker and my bike with me. And
Yep.
then we can all do our own program, but we're together and things like that. So lots of good ways in the winter to still, be around folks and get your training in when it's, just really not safe or too dark or whatever to go outside for the bike.
Well, and speaking of indoor training, you talked about getting a good workout in an hour, and I agree with that. And one of the things is it's just super convenient to go down, you go out in your garage or go in your workout room.
Yep.
I mean, you don't have to dress, you don't have to dress up, and I mean, you don't have to put a helmet on. It's and next thing you know, your workout's an hour into it, and and you're done. So,
Yeah.
um, what's the longest? I just got to ask you, Lisa. What's the longest? Are you one of those diehards? What's the longest you've ever been on an indoor trainer?
Oh boy, 5.5 hours training for an Ironman. Yeah.
Oh man,
So
I thought 3.5 was long.
five
Three and
and
a
a
half's
half.
my record.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to
Wow.
get, all your bottles of hydration set up. You
Yep.
have to set up your space. And, but another great thing about it is if you do have to like stop for a minute or get up and go to the bathroom, I mean, you can easily do that, so
Right.
it's not too bad, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that'll be really popular, the group ride, going into this next season in 2021, doing some of those longer trainer rides for
Yeah.
people,
That would be.
So,
Um, yeah, that's super cool. Kudos to you. 5.5 hours sitting on an indoor bike.
yeah.
So, so there are other options too. I personally use a Kurt Kinetic. If we could stream that, producer Kurt KURT Kinetic,
Mhm.
and I use a Kurt Kinetic. It's a less expensive option. I think they're about $350 now. That includes a little Bluetooth device that will send a signal to your phone, so you can monitor power
Right.
to your phone. Kurt Kinetic has an app with a training plan, and I think I'm not sure if the simple training plan is free, but if it's not, it's like $10 a month, super inexpensive. So it's about half the price of Trainer Road, but I don't think it's quite as complex as Trainer Road, and I don't think it has group rides either. But
Mhm.
the Kirkinitic is a trainer just like that you're seeing on the screen. You clip your own bike into there. You do have to have oh, what do they call that, Lisa? The axle that you take out. They call it something starts with an S. Not
Oh, the,
spindle.
now I'm totally forgetting. It's not called the screw. What is it?
A skewer.
Skewer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the
It's called a
skewer.
skewer. And so you'll take your axle out and put the skewer on your bike, and then you just set your bike up on the trainer. It super fast to set up. Um, you
Yeah, and that's
know,
the same way the kicker works also, just with the skewer. So
yeah. And it's just, you can monitor, you can do all kinds of monitoring on these things. And another thing is that it's pretty portable, like you say. When I travel in the winter, sometimes I will take it to a hotel. You can ride your bike in a hotel. I mean,
yeah.
it's super convenient. One thing, I guess you talked about hydration. One thing we should talk about with indoor training. Another thing you will need is probably a riser, and most of the time they have a package to buy with these things: a riser to raise your front wheel up, and also a fan. A good fan is
Yes.
important. You want to speak to that, Lisa?
Yeah, I actually just got a new fan. I had a very old small box fan that I was using that, 20 years old, and I just got one on Amazon. It's Lasco, I think, and it sits on the floor and it has three, different speeds that it blows. The only drawback with it is that it doesn't have a remote. So a lot of times people would like a remote because
Yeah,
you can just shift it from there. But it's pretty easy with a smart outlet. You can at least turn it on and off, and those are really simple to get to. But fans are really important, especially when you're doing long rides. And if you're riding not in a very cold garage, like in a room in your house, you definitely are going to want a fan.
yeah. You don't realize how much you sweat on the bike until you're not outside. You're inside, and the air's not moving by you. You don't even realize that you're sweating when you're outside.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
indoors, it's you can. I know a guy that trained for an Ironman, and he didn't have, what do you call the thing? I just put a towel in front of over my top tube, but he didn't put anything over the top tube. And he sweated on it, and when he took his
Uh,
bike, and he never rode his bike outside. When he went to ride it to the day before the Ironman, it was locked up. It was rusted shut.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. That's another
Yeah,
good point is also, depending on where you're riding your bike, but a mat, if you're in an indoor room, a mat under your bike is really important. You can buy specific mats. I just use a yoga mat, a
that's
thin
what
yoga,
I do.
and put my bike under it because your drinks might spill, your sweat, all of that, and you want to protect the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. Good tip. And those are obviously tips that we've been there, done that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're educating our listeners and viewers. So
Yeah.
so okay. So that kind of with indoor training. So that's definitely an option. So what if
Mhm.
you want to ride outdoors? There is some great gear nowadays, and I will tell you, my wife and I have ridden outdoors, and we can ride down to about high 20s, low 30s, and still stay pretty much warm. Now, I wouldn't say that it's completely warm or completely comfortable,
Yeah.
um, but there's a lot of good gear now. You talked about layering. Can you
Mhm.
explain the importance of layering?
Yeah, I think layering is really important. And this is biking and then running, especially too. And your core heats up, everything heats up. But if you get layers, that way, if you start to get sweaty, you still have like a dry layer on top of that. And then you're not feeling cold. Because if you only have one layer on and you get sweaty, you're going to be cold. And then you're just going to get extremely cold, as the breeze kind of goes by you. And we talked a little bit too about some wind um, protection stuff. So there's a lot of vests like for running, and you can wear them biking and running that have a wind. It's not wind repellent. I'm not sure what it's called, but it blocks the wind, and it makes a huge difference, because once you start getting sweaty and you're cold, you really need that to keep from getting extremely cold. And like, I have Raynaud's syndrome, and so gloves is another huge thing that you can do, and you can layer those as well depending on how cold it is outside.
Yeah.
So those are great to have.
Great tip. And speaking of gloves, so I will say that no matter what kind of gloves you buy, whether it be Endura or Specialized, I've never tried Rafa gloves actually, but
Yeah.
once you've done a long ride and your hands get sweaty, those gloves are just going to soak up moisture. So again, kind of like you were talking about with the layers, if you don't have, and that I know of, there's not really a windproof cover that you can put over your gloves. I guess there probably is. I don't know. Maybe there is. Is there, Lisa? Maybe? No? That I know of? I don't think there
Yeah,
is.
there's different gloves. Like, you can get glove liners and put those right next to your hand, and then put like a warmer glove on top of that. And then I have some gloves actually that are gloves, but they have a little cover that comes over your fingers, more like a mitten. And that's really helpful too, because mittens are good because you can still keep moving your fingers together, and then the heat is kind of,
Right.
your fingers are all together there. So there's a couple different options depending on how actual cold it is. But I love those that I wear on the bike, actually, the ones that have the cover that come over the fingered gloves. So
Do you
those
know
can
the
be really,
brand name of those?
oh gosh. I'm pretty sure they are Pearl Izumi, because I have a lot of Pearl Izumi stuff. I really like their different products for biking. They're comfortable, and they're usually really well made.
Perfect. I will say this. One thing that's really helped me is when it's really cold, is these, they're called bar mitts. You can see how it's
Yeah.
shaped,
Yeah.
and they slip over your bars. You can either get them for drop bars, or you can get them for like more like mountain bike upright bars. And you slip your hands into them just like this. So you would slip it in just like this. I'm trying to put it to the camera,
Yeah.
and with your glove on, and it, obviously it prevents the wind, and it doesn't get wet necessarily itself. So it prevents the wind from getting on your hands. So even if your gloves get wet from sweat, your hands still stay warm. And a great trick is throw a hand warmer, like the little packet hand warmer.
Mhm.
Throw those in there, and I mean, there's literally, I've ridden when it's 35 degrees before, and I had to take my gloves off. So there's just a lot of good cold weather gear for riding and working out outdoors. So there's really reason to use the cold weather as an excuse to not work out. So, well,
Yeah.
thank you for your expertise on that,
Yeah.
Lisa, and your comments. So I don't know much about running. I'm not a great runner at all, or even a runner at all, pretty much. So
Oh, dear.
tell us about some of the tips that you have for staying warm while you're running outside.
Like we talked about, layers, also obviously hats. I mean, this is just a general rule, but you lose most of your body heat out of the top of your head. And so hats are really great. Beanies are great for in the winter. Any kind of hat like that. I also like to use actually earmuffs when I'm running sometimes, just because they're very focused on your ears. And if you don't need the top of your head, but your ears can get really cold. So those are awesome. Thick socks, sometimes padded socks, like Smart Wool makes some really great socks that are good for the winter, where they're not overly thick. You can't get them on your running shoe. And also the hand warmer packets, like you said, I've used those before too. I've actually, put those in my mittens and gloves when I'm running. Also, I think eyewear is important. Like, I have sunglasses, and you can get them that are really light tinted, so they're not dark, but keeping that cold wind off your eyes, just like when you're biking, is also really important. When you're running, your eyes can start tearing, and it's just really uncomfortable. So
That's a really good point, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's an area where if you don't, it's in the winter, it's cloudy out, you're like, oh, I don't need glasses, right?
yeah.
But you get outside and it's just cold, and it really makes your face cold. So yeah, and you can get glasses with um adjustable lenses,
Mhm.
that have different tints on their lenses, dark, medium, and and even clear lenses. So
Right.
that's what I like to do. Another thing is shoe covers. You can get shoe covers for your shoes
Right.
outdoors, and there's something you can do with that. Running to you're talking about that. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things. You can't cover your entire shoe, but like for example, if you're running in the snow, there's just like gaiters that you would use for any other kind of activity in the snow. You can hook on your running shoe and it comes up over your ankle, and that keeps snow from like kind of going down into your sock or your shoe. Obviously you'll probably have on tights or something warm like that. Not related to warmth though, but a really good thing to think about when you're running is slipping on that ice and that snow. And so I found these, see if I can get these in here, the camera, the Yak Tracks. These are great.
Super cool.
I bought them last year. They go over any running shoe. So it's not like you have to have a specific running shoe, and they have the traction on the bottom. They're reflective heel tabs. There's all kinds of great things about these. Yak Tracks, they're really easy to do. Just put them on your shoe. I had one, slip on a black ice day on a run, and I was like, I'm getting these things. And I haven't needed them since, of course, because I bought them.
Right, right.
But I have them, and I know a lot of people that have used them. So those are a really big safety thing, I think, when you're running in the winter. Just nobody wants to fall and break a bone. So that's really good.
And what about like visibility?
Visibility, running especially, I think it's really important visible. And then when we're running in the dark, like we were just talking about this morning, the time change is happening this weekend. So there's going to be a lot less daylight hours. You can get vests, hats, your shoes, pants, everything can have reflective, strips on it. So when you're running in the dark, especially if you're running on like the road or something like that. But light is also really important. And I found this a couple of years ago. This is Ultra Aspire. It's kind of hard to see here, but it wraps around your waist, just kind of like a fanny pack, but it's very snug. It's a 600 lumen light. And the advantage to this over a headlamp is when I've found, running with a headlamp, your head's moving like this and the light's kind of bouncing around a lot. And it doesn't provide a lot of clear in front of your feet path. And for me, like, I don't want to trip on a rock or anything like that. This is super bright, super snug. Just put it around your waist. And they may have some that are even brighter than this, but the 600 lumen, it has a couple different settings. Perfect light for running right in front of you. You feel like you're running in the day. So that's really helpful too. And of course, cars can see this. It looks like a headlight to them, which is really important.
It is amazing how those lights have gotten smaller and brighter. I mean, for biking, it's amazing.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, for biking, you can buy one it's got kind of an external battery with it, not built in, but I mean, it's 3,000 lumens. I mean, it's bright as a car's headlights,
Yeah.
or even brighter.
Right.
And that's
And
a
this
reminder
is
too.
really super light. This is super light too. I would just say that because then a lot of people get worried about carrying things. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm hyper worried about it, and this thing, I don't even know I have it on. So
cool. And that's another reminder too, on a bike when you're riding outdoors all the time. Always have a red blinky light on your rear bike, on the rear of your bikes, because people can't see you necessarily if you don't have that. So always, whether it's light or day, always have that.
and wear bright clothing. Bright clothing.
Yeah,
Don't wear
and bright
black.
clothing. Yeah, I had a guy. He was a farmer, and I was riding out near farmland, and he stopped me, and I'm like, "What's this guy stop me for?" And he goes, "With all your black clothing on and no light, I could not see you at all." And I appreciated him saying that.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of like embarrassed. I'm like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
So
I mean, you can't see. I mean, any kind of neon bright color you can have on. And in fact, the shoe covers we were talking about for biking, like I have some from Pearl Izumi, they're neon yellow. And I think that's really key too, because a lot of people get black shoe covers. But with your feet spinning around as you're pedaling, that's pretty high visibility to
absolutely.
drivers, And so something small like that can make a big difference to catch a driver's eye when you're riding out on the road somewhere. So
For sure. Always think about safety. That's for sure.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about some. You about the importance of strength training and yoga. You talk about the importance of yoga during the off season in the winter. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I feel like, everybody talks about being mobile and mobility and stretching, and that's really important with running. And I think yoga is super important for that. And there's a couple different types of yoga. Flow yoga a lot of times has a lot of strength work in it, so you're kind of combining your strength and your stretching at the same time. Yin yoga is something that I have found to be especially important for runners, and that is, maybe 5 or 6 poses per class. And so you're not trying to quickly move through things, but what you're actually doing is a lot of strengthening or stretching in a slow pace, and that's super important too. And when it's cold outside, I think it's even more important because your muscles are cold. So you need to like really work on that mobility so that, when you get out there, you have that behind you going forward. And there's tons of free yoga online now. So a lot of people aren't able to go to studios anymore, or, it's pretty limited. And so there's lots of different channels, and there's a few that I like. So I have all my runners doing yin yoga, after their workout, some 10-minute sessions, and then just some 40 to 1 hour minute sessions once a week to help with that. So
That's awesome. Now, what about strength training?
strength training, that's a great topic. I really believe in that. And a lot of people go to the gym and things like that. But again, with gyms being closed recently and things like that, there's a lot of really simple stuff that you can do at home that makes a big impact. For me, 2.5 years ago, I started with a crunch challenge in January. Like doing 100 crunches a day in January. I've been doing it for 2.5 years now, so I'm kind of stuck on doing that. But that's a really simple thing that only takes a couple minutes. And I mean, it's made a huge difference for biking, swimming, running for me and my back, just doing the core, crunches every day. But I have a lot of my athletes do simple things they can do at home right now. Wall sits, push-ups, crunches. If you have an exercise ball, there's a couple different things you can work on for your glutes and your hamstrings. Some small weights, even just to do kettlebell. Kettlebells, you can do things like that. Very simple, and it can take like maybe 25 minutes out of your day. And if you do it a couple times a week, it makes a big difference. And then if you do some of these streaks with or challenges with push-ups and crunches, I think it's just a really healthy habit to build. And it just keeps, your body strong. And it's nothing fancy, doesn't cost any money, just a few minutes, here or there, or every day if you're doing a streak. So super important.
Yeah, I think if there's with endurance athletes especially, and of course we're seeing this a lot more in research, and fortunately a lot of coaches and endurance athletes are realizing the fact how important strength training is.
Yeah.
20 years ago, endurance athletes didn't do any kind of gym work whatsoever, and
Mhm.
unfortunately, there's endurance athletes, and there still are actually, and they're young, that are getting osteoporosis because they don't do any strength work. And especially the bikers, because running is bone bearing, so typically it's not as much for runners, but the bikers, I mean, there's a possibly an Olympic athlete for the United States that is, he's 20 some years old, and he has the start of osteoporosis. I mean, it's just, and because he doesn't do
Yeah.
enough strength work. So, and it doesn't take long, and you don't have to have a full gym at home. I mean,
Yeah.
like
Mm.
you say, body weight exercises, I think, are so underrated. Um,
Yeah. I agree.
most all my exercises are with body weight exercise.
Mhm.
And honestly, if I do use a kettlebell or some kind of weight, it's like 30 pounds. You don't
Mhm.
need a lot of weight at all.
You don't. Yeah. I mean, and you'll feel it too. Like I have my athletes like, oh my gosh, 1 minute of a wall sit. It's so hard,
Right.
like
Yeah.
50 minutes. I mean, that's literally all you need is a wall in your house to do. And I mean, your body weight is a really good way to get some weight training in. I mean, it's just simple. And
Yeah.
if you start doing stuff consistently, you'll really notice a difference, and you can quickly move from 1 minute to 2 minutes if you're consistent doing it, like on a wall sit, or 50 crunches to 100 crunches. I mean, it's just And it just takes a couple minutes a day,
It
which
does. And I mean,
that's
a
the main
tip
thing
for,
to remember.
yeah, right. It doesn't take long. And a tip for wall sits, it actually, a friend taught me this, was she started doing wall sits in her shower while she was brushing her teeth.
Oh, wow.
Right. And you're already doing that, right? You're not doing anything
Yeah.
else. So you might as well do that, right? You might as well do some kind of
Yep.
um, exercise. So that's what she would do.
Yep.
And talking about just simple stuff like an exercise ball. I think if there's two things I would recommend that somebody bought for their home gym, it would
Mhm.
basically be a medium weight kettlebell, maybe even a lightweight kettlebell,
Mhm.
and an exercise ball, because there is so much you can do with those two things.
Yes, I totally agree. I mean, a really big thing for runners is like glutes and hamstrings, and I have two things that you do on the exercise ball with that. And I mean, they're really great and super simple, and anybody can do it. And also, they make exercise balls. I have a couple of them, and one is weighted with kind of sand in the bottom. So if you're nervous about the ball slipping out from under you or whatever like that, if you get one of those, and I think I just got it at the local drugstore, Bartell's actually, it, it it's more solid. So if you're leaning on it, using it for anything like that, where you're not trying to pull or push it, it's a great way to do it. And you can actually sit on them, which I think is what they if you want to work on your posture, which is great because
Yeah,
really
and honestly,
good.
that's a great tip. And honestly, one of the things I love about this podcast is that I learn something from every guest. And I had no idea why that sand was in those medicine ball or
Yeah,
those yoga balls, exercise
well,
balls. Now I
yeah,
know, and it
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah,
I think that,
it's
yeah, I think it was for sitting. People didn't want to sit in chairs at work, but I mean, if you are nervous about like my balance off and on, I have shifts where I feel like I have less balance or more balance. That weighted ball is great. And I
yeah,
mean, I can like lay on it on my stomach and do these glute exercises, and I'm not worried about it like rolling out from under me. So,
yeah, that's great. So we're wrapping up here. What about some winter sports? I don't know a lot about winter sports besides snowboarding, and that's not necessarily or at all an endurance type sport. Not that you don't get exercise from it, but it's more like VO2 max stuff and aerobic stuff, just if you're jumping, which I don't
yeah,
do much.
yeah.
So you spoke that you've snowshoed before. So can you tell us a little about snowshoeing? I've snowshoed once, and tell us a little bit about snowshoeing.
Yeah, snowshoeing is great. It can be a very aerobic workout. You can take it really super slow, but like when I've gone in the past with my husband, I mean, it's like I'm sweating a lot in my snow gear, kind of thing. And if you can walk, you can snowshoe. That's what I love about it. You don't have to learn it like skiing or snowboarding or anything like that. It's literally just this snowshoe that you strap on your boot, very similar kind of to the yak tracks, but obviously it's, a little bit bigger, super simple to put on. You wear your snow gear and you can walk or hike anywhere in the snow. And I mean, it gets you places that you wouldn't go. And again, it's just if you can walk, you can snowshoe, and that's what I love about it. It's very simple.
That's
So,
that's
and it can
cool.
be a great workout. So,
Yeah, I should try to do some more of that because it's cross training in the off season is important, right?
yes, it
Yeah.
definitely is. And
To
snowshoeing is free too, which is another big thing about it that I really liked. Like skiing, it can be very expensive to go
yeah.
and ski. Snowshoeing's free. Like we literally would just drive somewhere and, get out of the car and take off and hike or snowshoe to this lake or whatever. It's free. So
Good
that's another
point.
great
Good
thing.
point.
Yeah.
Well, you are extremely knowledgeable in these areas of exercise, and I appreciate you being on today. Tell us a little bit more about your coaching business and how people could get a hold of you.
Oh, great. Yeah. So like I said, it's Grateful Heart Adventures is my business, and the URL for my website is just gratefulheartadventures.com. And I coach people running, and I can coach people who are training for a goal, like say, qualifying for Boston or something like that. I also really enjoy working with people who are returning to running or just getting started in running. I have a couple people who took a break from running, one coming back from an injury, and then I have some folks who are triathletes but running is their least favorite discipline. So it's really nice to be able to work with them and help them finish that last part of their race. But I do the one-on-one coaching. It's mostly virtual. We have an app called Final Surge, so I can coach anyone, anywhere. And we communicate a lot through that, do workouts, I analyze the data. We do Zoom calls. If people are local, I meet with them around once a month and do a coached workout. So it's a great way. Running is a great way to get in shape for other activities, even if you aren't specifically wanting to only run. But running can be done anywhere, anytime. So I really believe it's a great sport for folks trying to get in shape. And, you can enjoy running, just like you can see there on my website. I mean, you can enjoy running. And so a lot of it is not pushing yourself initially too much, but we work on figuring out what's a comfortable pace for you. And then once we get some miles under your belt, then we can start working on speed or whatever other goals you have. So sometimes it's weight loss. Sometimes it's, like I said, a specific goal, like for a 5K or 10K or the end of a triathlon. So yeah,
Wow.
wherever you are at your running journey, would love to help you.
Yeah. So when's your next competitive event?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. Everything from this year rolled over to next year. So, so I have a half Ironman in Chattanooga. May 23rd is my first event, and then the next event after that will be the Ramrod, which local folks might be familiar with, right around Mount Rainier in one day in July. So
Yeah,
that's a lot of extra.
It's only 125 miles, right? Right?
It's 150 miles.
Only 150. Okay.
Yeah. It's about 10,000 feet of gain, and you ride around the mountain.
How many? What's the elevation?
It's about 10,000 feet of gain in 150 miles, so
Yeah.
it's pretty good. Because the event was canceled this year, a good friend of mine, Diane, said, "Well, let's go out. Let's still do it." And so my husband and I and another friend who was planning to do it, we actually rode the route, and they did all the aid stations for us. And it was a very hot day, so that was interesting, climbing the Cayuse Pass. But yeah, that's a great event. So
good for you. Well, Lisa, thank you for being on today. I wish you luck on your coaching business, and I also wish you luck on the your competitive events that you have scheduled for next year. So thank you so much for being on today.
Thanks for having me. This was really fun.
You're welcome. You've been listening to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Tune in Monday at 1 to 2 p.m. for our next episode. Thank you for watching and listening.